I would like to introduce you, Francesco Billari, that will coordinate. Please join me on stage. Thank you for coordinating the population aging. You are a worldwide expert. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you, Nicola.
Will be very interesting. Francesco.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Riccardo. It's exciting to be here, and we hope to make the aging topic exciting, despite the standard view of the idea. We have, to do this, we have three indeed exciting speakers. So let me welcome Francesca Bellettini, who is the CEO of Saint Laurent, also our supporter today. Welcome, Francesca. Marine Habart, she's the head of retirement and pension funds and head of life at AXA Group. And Nicola Palmarini is the global manager AI for healthy aging at IBM Research. So today, this morning, the rector reminded that Bocconi is also doing research, sometimes research that is recognized. I like to here mention the fact that in the area of demography, we have 6 European Research Council projects funded at Bocconi. So indeed, we are producing frontier research in this field. I think we are justified to discuss about this global megatrend that is population aging. What do we mean by population aging? Just some figures will be useful here. Let's take 65 and over. I mean, without a specific stigma on the number, 65 and over as a threshold for defining kind of what is aging. Now, 9% of the world population is 65 and over. This is 680 million in the world, okay? In the rich part of the world, it's a double figure. 18% of the population is 65 and over. Okay, this is now. In 2050, one of the good things of demography is that we know some ideas about the future. There will be 1.5 billion. So it's more than double. 1.5 billion in the world will be 65 and over. This is population aging. In this group, there is a majority of women, the strong group. And this is unprecedented. So mankind has never seen this, what we call now in fashion, megatrend. Why are we there? For 2 reasons. And there are 2 good reasons. First of all, we live longer. So that's not bad. I mean, the life expectancy now, the global average is 72, which is enormous compared to what it was only 50 years ago. One of my friends, Jim Vopel, used to say something that I also every now and then repeat. Every day, life expectancy goes up by about 4 or 6 hours. So every day we only age for about 18 hours a day. So that's good. Aging starts when we are born. So that's one of the victories of mankind. The second aspect that triggers population aging is that we have fewer kids, with some exceptions like myself. But let's say the average number of children is 2.5 in the world, lower than that. Which means we can invest in quality, in education. Maybe we can afford also Bocconi fees. But, and that's, again, a victory of humanity. That's why we have population aging. Richer countries are aging faster. And guess who are the leaders in population aging? 2 countries far away, Japan and Italy. So Italy is the leader in population aging, and in a sense that gives an opportunity. Japan is already very active in making a success of population aging. In Italy, I think we still discuss with a prevalent view the problems associated with population aging. Higher healthcare costs, problems with the pension system, all kind of productivity issues. So the idea today was to look at aging as a challenge. Of course, it's a challenge, but it's not only a threat, it's an opportunity. So this is why we have our distinguished speakers, and we try to ask them about this potential opportunity. But let me start from Francesca, and I'll pose a question that then I will pose to the other two panelists, which is, I mean, what does aging mean in your sector, in your industry, and what are you doing about it?
Is it open? Yes. Good afternoon, first of all, to everybody. What does it mean? It means the same as millennials. Actually, I'm very happy to be in this panel because usually I'm invited to talk about millennials and the millennial population and how much of the proportion of your customers are millennials. In reality, in our industry, we don't work by demographic. We don't do collections thinking about this is for this age group or that age group, because what we say is like consumption of luxury is driven by an attitude. An attitude has no age. Even when we talk about advertising or the brand, the span of the people that we use goes from the 16 years old up to the over 70 years old, as much as men and women. There's no difference. We also use women testimonial for the brand that are not that young, because it is a matter of what they represent. Whatever we do, we think about the brand value. So we try to be consistent with the values of the brand and in projecting the values of the brand. So this has nothing to do with age. We try to stay relevant, which means trying to stay modern and relevant today, but at the end of the day, the people that can spend the most in luxury are not the youngest generations, because also when we see that the people consuming luxury are growing in terms of younger generation, in reality they pay with the money of their parents. So the choice is the one of the parents that give to them the possibility to spend money in luxury. So what we do, we don't care at the end of the day. That is a reality, because if you start caring about that, it doesn't work. You lose your identity. I discovered myself that over 70% of my clients were the so-called millennials. I discovered it by looking at the data. So I guess that if they came and shop at Saint Laurent, means that you're doing something right for them. And I always say that it's like in a relationship between a man and a woman. The one who wins is the one who doesn't care and who runs away. So if you start chasing people too much, you lose your appeal and you're not fascinating anymore. So what we try to do is try to communicate a dream. We make products that nobody needs. I mean, you don't need a Saint Laurent coat because you are cold. We need a product that satisfies an emotional need, which is a sense of belonging. So what we are trying to create is communicating the brand, sense of belonging of the brand, and using as testimonial people with a character. If you look at the people that at Saint Laurent we dress in terms of women, they really go from the daughter of Cindy Crawford that is 16 years old up to Catherine Deneuve. It is a matter of attitude. So that's the way we approach this aging or millennials or anything like that.
Thank you, Francesca, also for the citation of Teorema Marco Ferradini. That's a very fine citation.
Some of you all grew up with that, no?
Also, one of the challenges is that the millennials will become the 65 plus of the future very soon. That's one of the golden laws of demography. So, Marine, in your sector, it's a bit more difficult to say, I don't care about age.
Sure. Sure. We care a lot, of course. So, as you said, there is a silver tsunami that is coming, and for us, it's potential clients also. So, our main goal is to know, okay, right now, if you are 35, you will buy an annuity product, for instance, and you will pay for a premium for the next 30 years until retirement age. And then we will pay you each month an annuity, and we don't know yet if you will live 10 years, 20 years, or even more. So it's very difficult to price the product. And so that's why we currently extensively work with academics to better understand what the future will be. As you said, Jim Vopel was quite optimistic because he said that, okay, if you look at the past, you can see that we constantly increase 3 months a year of life expectancy at birth. And if you ask academics, you can have different positions. Some of them think that it will continue on the same speed. Others said that, okay, we've reached the top of what we can and now it will stop. And the most optimistic of them say that we will win even more because of medical progress, of technologies, and so on. So our key question is, how can we price our product in such an environment? And at AXA, our key strategy is not to only pay the bill. We would like really to be a partner of our clients, and that's why we care a lot of the elderly. We provide prevention products and so on. And it's particularly difficult for us when you promise your clients a guaranteed rate, and as of today, interest rates are very low, even negative. So we have to be careful also of the link between demographics aspects and the financial aspects too.
Thank you, Marine. So it's clear that one of the key risks in the insurance sector is called longevity risk, so the risk that we live too long. And if finally we find the secret of longevity and people start living 200 years, if a business is based on annuities, that's not going to be great for them. So when I was younger, to move to the next speaker, there was a word divided between Commodore, Macintosh, as it was called then, and the IBM PC. And so I would say, why is IBM doing research on aging?
Because we don't do PC anymore, that's it. So we have to find something else.
That's a first answer.
And thanks for inviting us. Such an interesting panel. Thank you so much. Well, our purpose as a company, I guess, basically all the companies has somehow the same philosophy. It's just to improve the life of the people, customers or your customers. And for us is the customers and the populations. So that's one of the social missions that my company always had since the beginning. We're 107 years old, so kind of experience that we've seen a couple of things or two about what's happening in this century. And most of the innovation that have been brought by IBM has an impact in our life, beside what has been mentioned this morning about the banks, which obviously is still one of the biggest pillar for our research, but there's a lot of others and things that probably you have in your pocket and nobody knows that we did it. Barcode, for example, has been invited by IBM. So this is one generic consideration about the interest about what's happening. And obviously, it's a mega trend, as you said before. So it's affecting all of us. I guess something that we should have to consider about aging, that despite other discriminations, because it's a discrimination, I don't know if you realize that when you talk about age, immediately you have a mindset in your head. And I guess purpose of our panelists also help you to change this mindset. For example, sexism or racism, it's very strongly identified on some areas of the society, while aging is affecting all of us. And other things that you should have to know is that we start aging as soon as we are born. So basically, you can see the things from two different perspectives. And what is happening? It's happening that we realize that we can do a lot to help people improve. Think about medicine. So think about a company like IBM, but a lot of many others that are working in augmenting the capability of the pharma industry. So you can do research, and we haven't fought cancer since President Reagan declared in 1993, I guess it was. But we did amazing progresses. And these progresses has been done thanks to some of the technology that now are raising up, and we're fortunate enough, all of us, to share some of these new technologies today, because it will help us to reach what you say before, longevity. And you know, there is a movement called Transhumanism, or H+, that is thinking that ideally we are not mortal. Maybe they are right, that's the point. So the point is that we should have to consider a scenario in which we could live forever. Because what they say is that basically we die only because we do damages to ourselves. So the best way to age as long as possible is to learn a lesson when you're young. And that's where I guess all the things come to play. If this technology can help us to understand more about us, so think about machine learning, deeper insight, think about all the evolution of this technology, try to apply them to ourselves as an aging population, well, you can see what's going to happen. So, bad news and good news. Every 3.3 seconds, there's one person who gets Alzheimer. And Alzheimer is a disease we still don't have an answer, but we're making also there amazing progresses thanks to machine learning that is able to understand dots and things in the background that we couldn't see before. Positive news about the market. What you were saying before, Francesca, and what we were discussing before at lunch, advertisers invest 500% plus on millennials. But think about the United States, which is the data that I have since I lived there. 50 plus in the United States holds 83% of the personal wealth, and it represents $60 trillion. And that market is not targeted. It's not targeted with products. There is a beautiful survey that says that 30% only, which is not nobody, but 30% only at 75 think that they are old. Anyone have read the news about Lamberto Boranga, sorry if I do a heavy citation, that came back to play professionally? Lamberto Boranga is a goalkeeper, all of my age, I guess. Yeah. And Lamberto was a myth for us in our age, because we have, le figurine, and the Cesena. But Lamberto Boranga was very rare. So I got this news, Lamberto Boranga came back at 75 to play professional. So he came back to his point. By the way, Lamberto Boranga has 2 degrees. So what I'm telling you Cicerone, if you get older with a purpose, being active, knowing what you like, and put it in place, well, that's the best way to get older. And at 75, it doesn't feel old. What is the mistake we do? We think about needs instead of wants. Typically, we target about the aging, they need a PERS system, an alarm system to stay safer. Do they want it? No. Do they have it? Yes. Do they use it? No. Or, those key phones, they're with big things instead of an iPhone. It's just like screaming to the world, I am old. And you don't want to feel old, because at 75, we're different than where we were 75, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And technology can help a lot to increase this thing. And instead of pushing us to feel, let me say, good until a certain moment in which we will die, we can start living earlier. And 50, there's nothing to be ashamed of to have 50 years old.
So if we look at data on life expectancy, 50 is the new 30, and 75 is the new 55.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And talking about footballers, of course there is lifelong learning. We have distinguished footballers who came to SDA to get good training to become managers, including very long-lived footballers. So if Mr. Buffon, after coming to Paris, wants to get some more kind of management education,
well, so.
that could be an option. Okay, so I have 2 points here. One is more, I was discussing Italy, but let me leave it for later. But then also abstracting from your industry, try to give a sort of an idea of what could be the dream, what could be an innovation that will help us making sure that we ripe the opportunity of this changing age composition. That may be completely outside your industry, so just give us your 5 cents. Francesca.
But in my view, it's very much related to what Nicola just said, because it's true that the population is aging, but we're not only aging, but we age better. We live better. We don't feel old, or we don't like to feel old. People don't advertise about, targeting the aging population because no one wants to feel like that. We always feel that we are 30 years old even when we are not. And we live like the 30 years old of the past. So I think that innovation could be starting exactly to treat this age group like an opportunity, like an incredible increase in your customer base, which is what it is, because they can consume your product exactly like the 30 years old of 20 years ago. And so being very normal in whatever you are doing, like I said, using them and icons when they are relevant, not for the sake of saying, now the population is aging, so I need to put in the advertising somebody that is 75. Yes. It doesn't work in that way. You put somebody who is 75 because it means something for the young and for the old. So trying to be innovative for me means try to be open-minded. Going into an industry that in my view is a photography of what is happening in the world. Think about cinema and movie. We are all now addicted on Netflix. If you look at the TV series and movies that Netflix has produced, the most successful one in the last 5 to 6 years, they are either targeted to very young millennia or very much aging population, but an aging population that is living a life that is a dream life. They are remarrying, they are having fun, they are restarting a business. So I think that the innovation is like being positive about that. In the Financial Times of last weekend, there was an article by a journalist that was incredibly interesting because she's about 35, and she has a mother who is 65 years old. And she was very worried about her mom, who was a widow, and she was discussing with her husband about the opportunity to take her mother to live with them, and they wanted to propose to the mother. When she went to the mother, she looked at them and she said, "What? I'm remarrying." And she was writing the article a year later, the day after the marriage of her mom at 66 years old. So it's really a way of targeting this opportunity with a completely different mindset. Some of the websites that are most successful are the matching websites that promise love for over 65 years old women. So it's really like being open and don't see that as something you should be ashamed or a constraint. It's simply an increased customer base, and for my industry, an incredible opportunity because people are wealthy, have more time to spend, and they become loyal to the brand.
And if they remarry, there is also 2 wedding
exactly.
dresses, and that's very...
And bags and presents and all the
and of
attendees.
course, many of us remember Catherine Deneuve getting out of the car and saying, "Oui, je suis Catherine Deneuve."
And if you see them now, when she enters the room, she catches the attention immediately, much more than any 20 years old. So it's a question of leadership, attitude, and fascination, and charm, not age.
Thank you, Francesca. Innovation, Marine.
Yes, at AXA we work a lot with startups and so on to better understand and also propose products that interest all those people. So let me give you only 2 examples. The first one is in Japan. So as you said as an introduction, the number of elderly is growing, and in Japan 25% of the population is 65 plus age. We developed an application. The ideas come from one people who his mother has Alzheimer's disease, and he tried to call her several times, and she didn't answer at all. So he was very upset. And so this application enables to geolocalize the people and to send a texto or so on to say, are you okay or not? And this can help our clients to take care of the elderly. On the prevention side, for example, in the UK, we also developed another application to have the biological age of the people, and it's more a prevention application because, of course, you have your real age, but depending on your habits, you can have a biological age less or more, if, depending on what you eat, on if you exercise, and so on. And we also give advice to the customers to improve their biological age. So that's why I think our key issue is to take care of our clients and to also better know them to do so.
Thank you. So the digital revolution is also supporting us in this new environment. Yeah, so talking about innovation, that's your everyday activity.
First, I want to say something about my age, so you get a point. When we were talking about Catherine Deneuve, I remember I was in Rome, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, and I met Silvana Palmarini was entering in, I guess she was in the late 90s, I think. And while she was entering the restaurant, she creating a sort of a wave of karma and charm that you could literally feel over your skin. So there is something that you acquire with the experience of age. So we also have to think about ourselves in this progression, and our sexiness probably will change, but it doesn't mean it will be bad. That's the point. So something that it's, first of all, thinking about ourselves. So my best desire on the innovation is to, as fast as we can, pull out the bias from machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques. Today, we're doing a lot of progresses, obviously, but we have a few data. And the data we have, most of them are biased. So most of the companies are using data that goes back to 10, 15, 20 years ago. And when I mean data, I mean that then we profile people on a certain idea, on a stereotype that it's not true, it is not reality. So one of the things, and I guess everyone in the room is working and will have to work to help debias the data that we have around. Just to explain what I'm talking about, there's one of the most used database, by the way, made by Google, but I would say they're doing a fantastic job. I'm just not pointing to them. But in that database, the equation is man equal king, woman equal woman, man equal doctor, woman equal nurse. Okay, so the database, the data are taken in that way. So immediately you put a stereotype around what you target, your products or your marketing techniques. That's one thing that I guess we should have all to work. And there's a consortium of companies that it's working in this direction. So in your business, keep an eye on this thing. The work we're doing, I would say, is that there is something happening. I guess all you realize that touch is over, and now we're using voice to interact with the world. The next step will be using brain. We're already working on that. So imagine that we will get rid of senses to interact with reality. But there is a step today, which is a revolution that it's obviously happening, led by Google and Amazon at the same time. You don't have the Alexa in Italy, but you have the Google Home, which is work, I guess, pretty fine. That type of tool is interacting with your voice. So you can command, there's a lot of companies that are developing very interesting services for us as customers in general. But since you're using your voice is such a powerful tool to understand what's happening in our life. And we and a lot of other companies I know are working a lot in understanding from my voice, from how I say things and how and what I say, if I, for example, will develop diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or slight dementia with a 10 to 15 year in advance. And the accuracy, it's coming up pretty wide. So I think it's another thing you have to consider. My suggestion to you, if you are thinking to implement services through this tool, think it from the broad perspective. It's not only delivering a service. It's not only a chatbot that allows you to interact with the customer in a faster way. It's a fantastic source of information from a lot of perspectives. And the last one I would like to mention is the work I do every day with my team. We're basically leveraging the Internet of Things, and I guess it's a subject that will be talked later, my friends and colleagues, to understand the environment or the context. Now, forget for 1 second wearables, which are doing great, but the only one which is really sold is the Apple one. Since all the others had a decrease, for sure there will be hype in a short time. But if you apply to some of the elders today, for example, so people that need or could need support today, it's very hard to, we also forget this. We hate to charge it, right? Always hate it. So it's still far that we have something that can go forever. So we're using, let me say, sensors to understand the environment where a person is living, and from that environment, establish a baseline and create a sort of a behavioral picture about how you're doing. And then suggest you what's going to happen in the next years, and then suggest you what you can do or you want to do to stay safe, to stay healthy, or suggest others how to do it. Preserving privacy, so we're not using cameras, we're just using what we can sense from an environment, trying to avoid what's happening in the recent times with, for example, Cambridge Analytica story. I guess the combination of this element, but for example, let me give you another simple example on how you can use the technology, augmented reality. There's a lot of interesting application coming up. You know what is one of the most interesting is Rendeavor, a company in Boston, which is basically helping people that can't go anywhere to use augmented reality to travel, to stay with the family, to interact. Again, it's the best we can get. It's not even better to have your nephew beside you. Sure it is, but if you can't do that, there is way in which technology can mitigate some things that we can't do anymore. Thinking about these two layers, there's a lot of things that can be done today, and there's a lot of things that we will do tomorrow. And there's an amazing space that it's open, and it's still not yet targeted today.
Oh, thank you, Nicola. Before opening the floor for questions, I'd like to touch a bit upon Italy. So, of course, Bocconi, as the rector said, it's a global university, a European leader. We play the Champions League. We want to win the Italian league or continue winning the Italian league. And sometimes we try to exploit the Italian advantage, like, I don't know, in style, fashion. And so in this case, the Italian advantage is being among the first, experiencing population aging. You can be in denial. Some of the current policy debate is in denial of, for instance, thinking that life expectancy has gone up and that may have an effect on the way we should have pension policies or retirement age. Denying that, for instance, care workers, about 1 million care workers in Italy are mostly migrant workers, and so they are essential to deal with the challenges of aging. But so, any of the speakers, what could be specific of Italy that we could leverage in this innovative ideas? Or is there any way we can exploit Italy as a laboratory?
I have a theory, but then I'll shut up.
Okay.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, because I was listening to Oscar Farinetti, and he says the 2 pillars to make Italy grow, improve export, and then get more tourists. And I think he forget one pillar, which is we have a fantastic gym in our country, since we're the second fastest aging country, and explain the young generation, the researchers, the designers, fashion makers, tourist managers, whatsoever, and sell the world this understanding on why we're living longer. We were discussing before about it. And what is the recipe that we have in Italy that we can sell outside? That could be a pillar for our economy, because we can export also the knowledge about how to deal with people which is aging.
Thank you. Francesca?
I can maybe make a comparison of what I observed when I moved to Paris. Coming here and living here and working here, you realize that what is happening in France and in Paris in particular versus Italy is the proudness of whatever they, as I say they, as we say we, but whatever they have. Sorry for all the French, and I'm representing a French maison, of what we have here in France. And when it's a matter of France versus the rest of the world, all the French people get together and they simply advertise their country and everything they have. The reality is that then you go deeper, and for example, you go deeper in our industry, even within our group. It's a French group that has saved a lot of Italian brands, but most of the employees are Italian. We are the strongest nationality within the Kering group and also within Saint Laurent. So I think that we should become a little bit better in explaining all of that we have, as you were clearly saying, into making people understand why in Italy people live longer, because we eat better. Our diet and our food is much better because it is like that, and it's living in France, I can tell you. The tomato, they taste like tomato and not like tomato with butter, as butter with tomato. And the same is like we have a beautiful country, we love beauty, and this is why we are so successful in fashion. And by loving beauty, we take very good care of ourselves. So instead of looking at Italy, oh my God, the population is aging that much, it's like, well, I should maybe live in Italy or live like an Italian because so I can live longer and better. Yeah. So we should advertise ourselves a little bit, with a little bit more proud, which is something that in my view we are missing as a country.
Thank you, Marina. What do we do with this Italian nationalism from your perspective? Except that maybe you want to go to Sardinia and find out why these people live so long. So.
Well, your question is really hard because I'm French, and you said before that the people who live longer are the Japanese and the Italian, but you forget one important thing is that the oldest people ever is French.
Jean Calment
yeah.
lived until 122 years in Arles.
Yeah, you're right.
So.
And we also eat really good in French.
Too much butter.
Okay, we can continue this competition in the Q&A. So the floor is open for questions. We have two questions here. So. And you are free to use privacy, GDPR, whatever, or to state your name, to stand up or sit down.
Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon everyone. I'm Marco Piacentini. You've been addressing the first part of your speech about the perception of being old, addressing it to a sort of a physical perception related to the 70-plus goalkeeper. But I think that what makes a person really feeling old is not a physical perception, but according also to this Maslow scale of needs, are the most complicated things to be satisfied, which is the self-esteem and the auto-actualization, the self-actualization. So even today, we mentioned that it is an issue to evaluate how to reposition a 45 years old or a 50-plus worker. So whenever there will be always an issue on what to do when you have overcome a certain age, there, the perception of being old will always lie. So I think one of the things I would like you to answer, if you can, how can we address this major issue, which to me relies to the intrinsic concept of feeling old and aging? Thank you.
Riccardo Zecchina. Sorry, I reveal your name. I hope it's fine. Everyone knows.
Very simple question. If you look at the data specifically, I mean, statistically, it's for you the question is. So why do we live longer? I mean, can you give us a more quantitative argument about that, just so that we don't get confused?
Okay, so let me answer right away. It's complicated. We live longer because general well-being has increased, but of course some data tell us that in some areas we live longer than in other areas, and this has to do with diet and lifestyle, and that's the peculiarity of Italy. So well-being, medical progress has contributed at the beginning to eliminate infant death, but now we're speaking about longevity, and longevity is about everything that makes us happy and healthy, including a good social life, good diet and exercise, and clearly a good environment. But we can do better in giving causal answers to your question. This is a difficult but easier question. The other question was perhaps more difficult on us. I don't know if any of you would like to answer.
I wasn't here in the morning, but when I hear that the problem is repositioning people over 45, I mean, 45, to be repositioned after 45, I mean, 45 you are young. I'm like, I hope so. I mean, I'm 48, and I'm like, I mean, I know I'm not a millennial, but I mean, considering a repositioning of a 45 or a 50, in my view, is a little bit too early. I agree with you that it's a question of attitude, and it's a question of not feeling old. But like in everything in life, you always need balance. In a company, you need a good balance of people that are young and they bring new idea, and balance of people with experience. And experience, you build it with age. And if you don't create in every single company and in every single group the balance of the two, you are lost. We spend tons of money for training, but training is also behavior, is also getting the confidence of how you behave at work. And I am not the same person as I was when I started to work, and you know how to move in the company. So I wouldn't consider this as a huge issue, or if you, again, if you start saying, you know, we discussed it before, if you have 48, we need to teach you things that you don't know how to do. What it is eventually, because we all think about technology, but there's nothing to do with age. I have an aunt that is 70 years old, and she uses internet and iPad and everything even better than me. So again, it's a question of attitude, and in my view, we don't have to categorize. We do training program, and we do them for all the people in the company. Not I teach you technology because you're old, and I teach you how to make a handbag because you're young. Maybe you are 70 and you don't know how to make a bag, and maybe you are young and you don't know how to switch on a computer. So it's also, I'm very much against the categorization. Maybe it's now clear. I believe that categorization becomes, kills the discussion, becomes very, sometimes limiting possibilities. Because the moment you create categories, people want to enter a category, which means that you cannot have a different idea. Look at what is happening in the US, not talking about age, with all of those movements for parity. At the end of the day, you risk of feeling even more unequal because they treat you as something that, and I can say it because I'm a woman, so there's nothing bad about that. So I think we should be all a little bit more relaxed and treat people with the same view and looking at all opportunities. I mean, honestly, in the company, I don't think about how do I reposition over 45. Also because I would have to reposition myself. It's a bit complicated.
Yes, just a comment, if I may. So it was said that your age is, let's say, in your mind, but in insurance, we have also simplified underwriting, meaning that we ask some basic questions, such as, do you smoke, yes, no, and so on. And one researcher, Jay Olshansky in the US, also do underwriting, simplify underwriting by taking a picture, and meaning if you have a baby face, you will live longer than someone who looks older. So it's one of his key principles. So you can think that it's right or not, but it can be used also.
Thank you. There will be some photoshopping in this case. There's a market for. Next questions, please.
Thank you, Stefano Donati. First of all, I think the trend of aging is probably being captured for the first time probably by politics. And we're probably seeing that the results of current politics are probably reflecting this aging. Two questions or comments. The first one for Ms. Bellettini. It's also true aging is happening, but probably people which are age today were part of the baby boomers, and now they're living on savings that probably next generation of age people will not have anymore. So how are you actually thinking about this? How you capture people that today are young, but probably tomorrow will not have the same savings that the current age people have.
But again, sorry. I thought you finished the question. No.
Maybe.
And the second question is a question to Mademoiselle Habart, and also on artificial intelligence. Is true life insurance and health insurance products will benefit from artificial intelligence. What about the problem of adverse selection? The more data you have, probably the better you'll be at pricing insurance products, but which also create a problem of fairness vis-a-vis those clusters that fall outside the averages and probably will have more limited access to these products.
Thank you. Francesca was burning to answer.
Sorry.
Please.
Yeah, also because otherwise I don't remember the question, but now
I have the
do.
same problem.
So I try to answer immediately because otherwise I get lost. As I said at the beginning, we really, and I'm honest when I say that, don't think about age when we plan our business. I know that this is an important macroeconomic trend, but luxury is an industry that is a little bit of niche. When you look at the total number of consumers that we have, is nothing compared to big consumer product. They say luxury is exclusive. We are trying to become more inclusive, but still we are an industry that talks to a number of people that is not that big. So the only way that we have to survive to whatever trend is, again, the brand, and it is to remain desirable. We were discussing before at lunch, the biggest bracket of people that consumes luxury are between 28 and 45, 50. The struggle for a brand is to remain appealing to these people. You cannot age with your clients. It's not true that you need to think about the millennial of today that will become 45 in the sense that you have to become older with them. It's like you target that segment, and then of course there is a span, but you need to remain relevant to that span, which means that you need to make little adjustments so that your values and what you represent as a brand remains always relevant in the period. It's more an evolution, sorry. And what is important is like not making the brand aging. That is the most important threat, because if you age, you don't appeal to anybody. Because again, like we said, even when you are old, you don't want to look old, and you don't want to think that you are old, so you would never lean in luxury to buy a handbag of a brand that looks like the brand of who you consider a non-appealing person. So the trick is really to remain consistent to who you are and not being pulled too much by all of those conversations. Aging, but also millennial. I mean, I put them exactly in the same basket because they risk of distracting us on what we have to do, which is protecting the brand and the appeal and the desirability of the brand. So it is true. That's what we do.
Thank you. Marie.
So if I remember well your question, because I have the same issue. So you were talking about the anti-selective effect between the national population and the insured people. Yes, you're right, and indeed how are we, let's say, calculating the risk and pricing the products? We are working not only on national population because it's more easy to have data, and when I say that, it's more or less true because some areas of the globe do not have reliable data, such as Africa or even South Africa or Asia. So here again, we work with academics to have reliable data, reliable statistics, and we also work on our own insured portfolio data. And we know that, generally speaking, insured people live longer because they are more wealthy. People who have an insurance product are, let's say, more educated and wealthy as a national population, and we take this into account when we price the products. And another aspect is also that we sell both. So annuity products, where our risk is longevity. If the people live longer than expected, we will not be happy. But we also sell death products, and both products are anti-correlated, meaning that we can balance our portfolios with both products to be at an equilibrium.
Thank you. There are questions in the back.
I'm working in the IoT business for high fashion chain, giving the possibility to the clothes to talk into the store. And I was thinking if in a brand like Saint Laurent, is it really needed? I mean, this digital innovation into the store? If yes, can I give you my business card later?
I was trying to link the question to aging, and I really don't find the link. No, I'm kidding. Yes, it is needed. It is. So if you want to give me your business card, more than welcome. Also because the fashion industry is very much behind digital innovation. We thought at the beginning maybe it was not so relevant. At the same time, it is not what we do. It is needed to simply make the customer experience better. It's not needed because we need to become a technology company. So this is sometimes where we lose the sight of what this means. So we are investing a lot in digital innovation, but to be honest, before you can talk about technical innovation, you need to talk about an IT system in your company that can support it. So most of our investment at the moment is going in that direction. And of course, then we talk about omni-channel and customer experience. So yes, it is needed simply because it's expected by the clients at any age. It's not true that it's only the young, but now we are all very spoiled about being able to have omni-channel experience, to be able to have immediate response if you want to know if a product is in stock or not. And digital innovation is all of this. Same for artificial intelligence. It is needed. No, can make your life better and easier. Yes, because it helps you predicting better some of the trends that otherwise it takes too much to do. But we don't have to become a technology company, that's for sure.
So digital innovation comes together with aging, but it was not really connectable. And talking about Africa, I can remind that somehow the digital revolution is getting there, and even the African population will be aging, but they will all be aging with mobile phones, for instance, which is something that was not happening when there was only wired communication. But here is the next question.
Hi. So suddenly I discover also that living longer is a problem for the society. For our Roman citizens, living longer was a good thing. Suddenly the culture has transformed aging in something negative. Well, I would say to young people that if we are aging, it means that we are alive and we are not dead, which is something to think about. Can you name a company that is building their reputation and changing this culture versus aging?
Can I name a company? I think here we are. Okay, let me start from, okay, when we were speaking about Romans, life expectancy was 25. So the probability of getting 65 was around 1% or something. And being aged, as we described today, was really exceptional. So desenectute is a completely different word. Here we are speaking of a condition in which there is a generalized longer life, and I agree with you. The whole purpose of this session was to try and reverse the public discourse. But I think these companies seem to be doing the right thing.
If I may add a couple of things. I've seen in the last years some application of innovation that, like it often happens, start with a mission and then goes with another direction because they realize that probably the product was not designed properly, or they were thinking to solve one issue and was not the right issue. Let me mention Piaggio. They have a division in Cambridge, in Boston. They opened 3 years ago, and they developed, I don't know if you have seen it, a sort of a wheel. It's called Gita, which is basically, it's following you. So you can load this wheel, and this wheel has some techniques that are able to understand who you are and follow you around, as being designed and thought for the young millennials that are, populating Cambridge, since you have Harvard, MIT, so all the smartest people in the world. Well, nobody were interested really yet. They realized that it was a fantastic way to help elders to go around and do grocery if you have troubles with your muscles, for example. So they did it, and then they are targeting, if you see their communication, it's all targeted in that direction. Let me tell you another things about another company you all know that they still don't know they're doing business for the elders, which is Tesla. Because now you market Tesla as the most super cool car. but also it could be the most smart wheelchair. Depends where you do see it, since it drives itself, right? So you don't have any more capability to drive. He basically understands the context, he drives for you. Transportation is one of the main issues company has. Let me remind a couple of data. One data is that loneliness, which is an issue that we never talk because it seems something untouchable, which is very tangible because it has impact on our society. If you feel lonely, 43% of UK people feel lonely formally. It's very close to depression. It's just like you're smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Check out the data and tell me if I'm not lying, which is what's technically happening. So think about all the effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day without smoking, and it's related to loneliness. Now, I've been in a panel at MIT Age Lab where we're talking about transportation. And the panel was with people 85 plus. And these people was raising the hand and says, oh, I really would like to have a Tesla that is coming outside of my home and it's picking me up without me asking my daughter to do it. So think about the concept of independence in a certain age. Drives me to the grocery store, wait for me, come back and be available to someone else. So that's a business model that is happening, that was unthinkable 4 or 5 years ago. And Tesla can do it. You don't have a Tesla, think about Uber, which has a lot of bad sides, as you know, but now Uber is becoming one of the most helpful service for elders because they can literally have a machine or car, always available for them wherever they are. And it's so simple since almost of everybody has a mobile phone. So think other sides of business which are established or products that has been designed and rethink them for the needs of this population, but as we said before, for the wants of this population. They want to be independent. We think they need a wheelchair with someone who's bringing them down? No. Last example of such a simple technology, there is a company in California, it's called WalkMe. Basically, it's a community like Uber, but instead of driving you a car to pick you up, you know what they do? They drive you a person to pick you up. So there is a person that helps you to walk around your neighborhood. What it's using? Such a simple technology. GPS on your phone. I'm here. I need someone that walk me out. And the idea of have someone that walks you out, I guess, tells you a lot about what's in the background. Because we can have all, but if we're isolated, and in the United States, and going back to Italy, you know they are isolated. They had the castles built around outside the cities that were wonderful when they have 15 children and people screaming around. But when you're alone, 85, you have to do stairs, and the closest grocery stop is 16, 15, 20 miles away. Well, have someone that comes and picks you up, and these services are going up since it's not a data scientist. The most requested profession in the world is caregiver.
Thank you. So, caregiver as the most requested profession in the world. Another way to answer the question is that all successful companies will either are already seeing aging in a positive way or will have to in order to survive. So that's maybe a mantra for the future. We have time for 1 or 2 last questions, please.
Thank you. Ilaria De Santo, I want to link a little bit to what he was saying before. I think in this panel we considered aging population as a target, as a customer, which is always very good. But we would like to have aging population keep on working, maybe just because they like working. They don't need necessarily to work. I'm not too much in favor of positive discrimination. As a woman, I want to be there because I'm good and not because I'm a woman. But I'm wondering if you believe that policy in this direction might help companies actually in looking more carefully at the experience that, let's say over 50 people have and can bring to the company. And I'm glad that in your company you don't look at ages and you don't think replacing, repositioning 48, 50-year people is a problem. It is in a lot of industries. In my industry, if you're not a VP when you are before 40 or 42, you will have a lot of lateral moves, but that's all you can aim for, right? Which is not necessarily, right. So I'm wondering if you believe that policies that have been put in place for women, for example, can help in, people over 50, 60 to, be proficient and actually contribute, because at the end it's a matter of contributing, right?
If I can say a very quick things I just want to say before to your question. I guess there is a big misunderstanding here about the two words, diversity and inclusion. We all are proud of our diversity numbers. How many women in the board, how many. Diversity is one thing. It's just like inviting someone to play a soccer match and then keep it in the bench if there is no inclusion. So if you don't ask this person to move it from the bench and go inside the field and play, well, diversity is nothing. So point is that we should have to look at policies of inclusion, not only diversity, because diversity is a number, let me say, easy to put there. You hire disabled people, you hire women, you hire elders, but then what they do in the organization? Are they really included in the system? And when we mean inclusion, it means to put them with the tools, with the responsibilities, with the capabilities that they have to be part of the play. And be part of the play means to be productive. To be productive means give you a purpose, help your longevity, which is another way to explain why we're living longer. So that's this mechanism, and we have to be able, I guess, everybody in the room to check out and see the difference between diversity and inclusion.
Thank you.
I think that if you say in a company, in the company where I work, if you haven't reached a certain level before 40 years old, you are a no one. This, unfortunately, in my view, has nothing to do with aging. It has something to do with competition and with how many places are available, because it happens in a lot of industries where, unfortunately, you can reach a certain, I don't even think it's a question of age, it's more a question of maybe stimulating a culture of ambition and killing each other. So, which is not the culture that I think, there's my HR director sitting somewhere here, that we have in the company. So I as much as you hate a stereotype, I like to think that I'm in my position for what I can offer and not because I'm a woman. I never join a board when they say that they call me because they need women, and I just hope that if I ever call me, I can contribute something as a human being. I also acknowledge that there are some places where this is difficult, and trying to fight for something and creating and facilitating route can help. We have done a lot for women. I never particularly thought about having to do something for older people, because we are in an industry where heritage means a lot. So it's a little bit difficult for me to relate to this, because in my company, the older people are the ones that are the most respected, are the ones that were working with Mr. Saint Laurent, to give you an idea. So they are really, maybe we are Roman, but inside, but there is really a respect for whatever people with experience bring. Inside our atelier, the people that are the most looked at are the people with experience that teach to the young ones. So we didn't feel the need for doing something, probably because of this. Wherever this doesn't happen naturally, I believe that policies can certainly help. There are some companies in other industries that are actually doing some internship program for older people. There was a movie done in the past, but not because the movie was an idea. It's because it's really happening in the States. They hire as intern people that are retired, because they feel that, and in particular in tech, very young companies, because they bring something that there isn't. I mean, you see that a lot of the tech companies went bankrupt because the guys were too young, and they didn't know how to manage the company. Yeah. So everything that can be done, first of all, people need to acknowledge that they have a problem. And then when you know that you have a problem, you need to solve it. So wherever there is this problem, it needs to be solved in whatever way. But I agree more with the culture of inclusion, creating a purpose and a need, and not because you want to make a discriminated category feeling included without really making them feel included. Years ago, there was with technology. We all wanted technology in the company, and then we created the digital area, and we put all the people in a separate floor with a computer, and they look like aliens, you know. Technology had to become available in all of the areas of the company. And for me, it's the same with gender, and it's the same with age. So.
Thank you, Francesca. We are a bit more than 1 minute over, so I'd like to thank our fantastic speaker and the audience for a great interaction.